Yeah, okay, the Gentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation, knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Gentry. The Gentry Podcast. The Gentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello, and welcome to the Gentry Podcast. Today we have an incredible guest. Patrick Bryant is the city manager of Avondale Estates in the great state of Georgia. But before that, he was an ICMA fellow. He has been in Talladega, Santa Clarita in California, and he's done so many special things. And now he's landed in Georgia, and I am truly excited for this episode. This man brings passion in everything he does. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Bryant.
It's me.
How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, Jonathan. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to, tell the world what we're doing, how we did it, why we're doing it, and how special it is. So I'm grateful anytime I get to spread the word of Avondale Estates, and I can't wait to have a conversation with you today.
Well, I think that might be a great place to start. Let's just jump right into it. So, what is it that Avondale Estates does that nobody's doing, or what is the special sauce down there?
Yeah, I think the special sauce is our identity. We are a small city in a huge ocean. So Avondale Estates is actually the first example of a planned community in the Southeast. And it was planned to purposefully be small in order to build community. So we're 1.25 square miles and people in the heart of the Atlanta metro area. And when I say heart, I'm talking 6 miles from downtown. So we are an inner ring suburb, but we are a unique fit into the fabric of the metropolitan area because we've stayed true to ourselves. If you come to Avondale Estates, you know you're in Avondale Estates, from the architecture, from the green space activity that we care so deeply about, tree canopy, historic district. All of those features are very unique to this area, and we harness that and take pride in it, and that's how we project ourselves to the world. So everything we do is mindful of those original values that the community has held for now 100 years as we approach our 100th year anniversary.
Wow, that's incredible. You said a lot there, and I believe the identity of a community is so important. And when you start to talk about the green space, the tree canopy, you guys are really giving people the opportunity to get outside and experience nature. I've seen the architecture; it's gorgeous and very impressive. Now, the follow-up question would be: do you, as you guys continue to now bring in industry, how do you guys balance maintaining that identity, maintaining the green space, maintaining that tree canopy with the economic development initiatives I'm sure you guys have?
Yeah, and that is the sauce, right? So I think being mindful of the identity as we try to develop ourselves to sustain into the future is what we use to essentially make every decision that we make. So we carefully have crafted master plans and zoning codes to ensure that we maintain the identity, but do so in a way that allows us to grow sustainably, allows us to diversify our economy, allows us to become, an attractive place to live, work, and play for all audiences. So, we want to ensure that the next 100 years in Avondale Estates is just as promising as the first 100 years have been. So we are trying to be environmentally conscious, doing regenerative land use practices, stormwater installations as amenities so that, we are enhancing the identity and continuing to build on it, but also implementing best practices that will help us sustain, our beautiful landscapes, our tree canopy, our park space well into the future for future generations to enjoy.
You said maintain identity, and that can be such a buzzword when people said it, but you followed up with some actionable steps that you guys are taking to not just maintain the community feel and the human identity, but also the natural identity of the space. And I always say you can learn a lot about the identity of a community by the identity of their one of their leaders. So Patrick, tell me a little bit more about yourself. Where did you grow up? Did you always know you wanted
Yeah.
to get into local government? How
Yeah.
did this work?
So I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. So not far from the Atlanta area. It's a 2-hour drive. The people are similar. So I know the metropolitan South. I think that's my sweet spot. Even though I have lived in other areas of this country and enjoyed my time there immensely, and we'll get into that. But did I always know I was going into local government? No. But did I have a pretty strong sense that I would be in government at some level? Absolutely. My parents were very politically conscious. We watched the news every night. We discussed current events. They encouraged, me seeking knowledge about, history and how government operated and political candidates and campaigns and all of that jazz. And so I thought as I was graduating from undergrad that my next stop would be DC, right? I mean, that's just the natural progression. You get juiced up about politics and you want to take your act to Washington and make a difference. And I remember, as I was starting to pursue that, sitting down with the department chair of government at UAB and talking to her about my future. And she said, "Hey, have you ever considered, you know, being a government practitioner? Not somebody who works behind the scenes on campaigns or as a staffer or as an elected official, but a government practitioner." And I said, I really haven't given it much thought. And so she's like, "Hey, I want you to go talk to the director of the public administration master's program here and just see what you think." And I did, and he sold me on the program. And I think it was kind of like kismet, because my first semester, I was fortunate enough to take a state and local government class with who I now know to be the legend, or at least one of a small handful of super legends, like the Michael Jordan of city management, Sam Gaston, who was, acting as an adjunct professor in our program while also being the city manager of Mountain Brook, Alabama. And I thought the class was fantastic. And he invited me to come intern with him that summer. And the internship wasn't like a classic internship, where you're, stowed away filing papers and doing kind of like those menial tasks. He let me follow him around all summer. So I spent my summer either following him or following a department head and actually kind of sitting in on their meetings on a daily basis and understanding, kind of what it means to be a city manager or what it means to operate a city government, something I really had no clue about, right? But man, I was juiced up and fascinated and couldn't get enough of it. And then Sam encouraged me to apply for the ICMA Local Government Management Fellowship. And he claims he had nothing to do with me being selected as a fellow. And I'll honor him saying that, but wink, wink, nod, nod. Anyway, I was selected as a fellow, which took me to Douglas County, Nevada, the Lake Tahoe area. And then after that fellowship, kept matriculating west and ended up working for the city of Santa Clarita, California, which is a suburb of Los Angeles, for 7 years. And boy, I can't say enough good things about that organization. They do it right. Everybody in that organization is highly motivated, highly educated. They really want to be there. It's just an example of an incredibly well-run city. They've got their act together. And I'm incredibly grateful to have been able to learn the ropes from some of the best in the business before once again Sam Gaston entered my life and encouraged me to come back home, where I was fortunate enough to become a city manager at age 34 in my home state, the city of Talladega. And I spent 3 years as manager there, and now I've been in Avondale Estates the last 7. So that my 10-year anniversary as a city manager is coming up in a couple of months. I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the work that we do here, but I would remiss if I didn't, give a shout out to those who have helped me along the way, like Sam Gaston, Ken Pulskamp, Ken Striplin. These are big time heavy hitters in the industry, and they took time to help me advance in my career, and I couldn't have done it without them.
That's It's so powerful for me to hear somebody that's been a city manager coming up on 10 years, still hearkening back to the support and the mentorship and even some of the introductions to programs, to people, and even to your previous employer out in Santa Clarita, just how highly you speak and how important that is. I tell people about half of our viewers are somehow working in municipal government, and the other half are either millennials, Gen Z, and even
Mhm.
lower. And one thing that I definitely want to push to them is try to find those mentors. Try to find, if you can, an opportunity just to job shadow. From what I'm hearing, if you had a traditional internship, you would have been maybe in the mailroom getting coffees, like potentially doing a project. But because you were able to job shadow and really get into those meetings with Sam, you were able to light that fire, which I can still still see burns within you. So that is so important, and not the typical order of operations over here at Gentry, but I just have to, since you put that path out, how are you guys outreaching to younger generations? How are you guys making sure that they're involved, maybe civically engaged, or even employed when it comes to Avondale State's local government, or just employed in general by bringing
Yeah.
jobs to the community?
Well, we try and just kind of stay on trend. I think we have an older community. When I got here, and I don't know, if this level has been maintained 7 years deep now. But when I started, I saw in some census data that the median age of Avondale Estates was 10 years older than the median age of the country. So we have certainly had to really target younger folks, given that our normal residential audience may not have been one that a message targeted to a younger audience would be catered to. So, what we do is we harness the power of social media, and we try and be diverse in our social media messaging. We are mindful of the various audiences that we have to reach. So when we're trying to reach a younger audience, we're doing audio and messaging that will resonate with them. Because boy, I'm barely a millennial. I'm like the oldest millennial in the book. So I know just enough about technology and social media to be dangerous, right? But those younger generations, that's what they know. So we have been mindful to um, you know, try and diversify our staff to be one that can interact with every audience that we have to interact with. So when we recruit for a purpose. We recruit to fill a gap. So if we have a gap in, you know, messaging to different generations, we're going to try and hire somebody who can message to those generations. And we've been very successful in doing so. I don't know if that's because we recruit in the right places or if we're incredibly lucky, but or a combination of the two. And whatever it is, I'll take it. It doesn't matter. But we know that in order for us to continue to thrive as a city, we can't limit our reach. We have to diversify housing. We have to make our city available and affordable to seniors, established families, young professionals, blue collar workers, because in order to thrive, every city needs all of that. So, what we're doing to try and accomplish that is, make intentionally develop in a way that brings those communities together and provides activities for each niche, right? So we want to have, nice modern luxury apartments. But we want to also have senior affordable apartments. So seniors who can no longer afford to, both monetarily or physically, live in, a 3,000 square foot house that they can't maintain anymore, but love the community, can move into an apartment or move into a senior community so that they can age in place, which then in turn frees up that housing for young families to move into. So we understand the importance of diversification of housing. We understand the importance of diversification of activity. Each public private partnership that we enter into for recreational or commercial purposes is done in a way that we provide a little something for everybody, right? So, like when we built our urban town green, we built a town green with, like a passive lawn space, active playground equipment, outdoor amphitheater space, a shaded pavilion space, because we understand that each kind of age group or each demographic has a different need, and we are incredibly intentional and mindful about accommodating everybody's need so that Avondale truly is a place where people can, of all ages and all backgrounds, can live, work, and play and thrive doing so.
It's important to message it and utilize the communication channels. I'm just we're going on TikTok now for Gentry. We got our first big video. We got 94,000 views. So we're super proud on this side. But
Yeah, that sounds significant. I'm
who
barely a
knows? Who
TikToker.
knows?
Yeah, the only reason TikTok's on my phone is so that my wife can send me things that she finds interesting, and that is the extent of my recreational TikTok use. But 94,000 sounds pretty great.
We're definitely happy about it. It's better than the 200 we normally get.
Yeah.
But more importantly, so the communication aspect is important to be on the channels, understand how to communicate with them. But what's even more important, I think personally, is jobs for them, having affordable housing for them, having a place where they can age into the community. So, like you were saying, first houses, maybe fresh out of college, get a nice blue collar job, up to the route, you have a small family through the retirement. So, having that availability is almost just as important to communication. So, when you said, I think you may be getting lucky, I don't think that's it. I think it's
Awesome.
targeted communication and great amenities. So, I'm really happy.
Sure. You have to have what the people want, or the people aren't going to want to be there. And we know that. If it's an important value for you, then you're able to put your money where your mouth is, and that makes a world of difference. And I am so proud to be a leader in a community that does that. Our board really, isn't they're not all talk, they're action. So if we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. And there's a reason behind it, and it's been well thought out. And we've got a plan, and we execute that plan, and we just kind of repeat that over and over and over again, and that's how we achieve success. I mean, it's really just everybody working from the same page, everybody working to achieve the same goal. And when you have a team that's working to achieve the same goal, you're gonna have, some level of success. And it's much like, the tide. We're all about the process, right? We don't focus we don't we don't focus, on things that are so far out in the future that we can't even visualize attaining them. We take it one step at a time, and we're just trying to be a little bit better than we were the day before. And as long as we're a little bit better than we were the day before, we're going to be successful in the long run. And so that's what we preach here. That's what we do here, and it's worked out well for us.
Think that's a great way to speak about it, and I love the Crimson Tide plug that
Yeah. Yeah. That's part of my identity.
right
I
down
also
in
have to stay
Georgia.
true, you know? Right.
But on the goals aspect, could you kind of talk through what are a few of your major goals? I don't know if you guys have recently done your comprehensive plan, kind of where you are with that process. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. Well, feels like we just recently did it, but now we're due for another update. So every 5 years, we're updating that comprehensive plan. Every 10 years, we're updating our downtown master plan. We're about to go through a dual update later this year. So we're going to be doing master plan and comprehensive plan at the same time. But as they have existed for the last decade, the goals remain the same. Economic diversity is at the top of the list. We know that in order to sustain ourselves well into the future, we have to make sure that this economy works for its residents and business owners. So we're trying to ensure that businesses aren't coming here and cannibalizing each other. We're trying to make sure that, we set up our infrastructure to make it attractive for various types of businesses to locate here, right? So in order to do that, we really master plan everything. So we've got, a street grid that we are developing in our downtown. The reason that we want a gridded system is, well, obviously to enhance connectivity, but to also ensure that block sizes don't get out of control. So it makes it attractive for businesses to locate where we have different typologies of streets in different areas of our city to ensure multimodal traffic can easily pass. So, we have a big pedestrian and bicycle community. We want to make sure that pedestrian and bicycle traffic can travel throughout the city freely and safely. But of course, that type of traffic lends itself to certain types of businesses too. We're completely redoing, interestingly enough, right now, kind of like the spearhead of this whole plan is the remaking of a state highway that runs through our city. So our state highway 278, it's a pretty substantial highway, is your typical 1950s style 5 lane, no landscape median. Signals aren't necessary, like signals aren't placed in the best spots, just free flowing, sprawling highway. And what we're doing right now is a $10 million uh, uh, capital complete street project, which is transforming that highway from the sprawling 5 laner into a landscape, streetscaped, pedestrian friendly, bicycle friendly, motorist friendly Main Street in order to encourage folks who are traveling through this community to stop and enjoy the community rather than just using it as a pass through. It's those types of things that we're doing in concert, to ensure we achieve that goal of economic diversity. We achieve the goal of being environmentally conscious, reducing, automobile travel as much as we can and encouraging more environmentally friendly travel like bicycles and pedestrian activity. We native are built for this environment. We encourage the use of those. We take it even so far as no pesticides or herbicides. We only use environmentally friendly chemicals to maintain our green space. So we're very conscious of everything we do. And all of that goes back to satisfy those two main goals, which is economic diversity and environmental sustainability. If we achieve those goals, then the quality of life for people who live and work here is going to continue to rise.
Like it with the two values, it seems I said the word that I was thinking of. They're very much values based and vision based, and you can kind of any of the strategy or the X's and O's to get there. As long as it aligns with the bigger vision, you can make an easy decision, and the people on your staff can make a pretty easy decision. It's like, okay, this aligns with everything we're about. I think this is something I'd want to put forth to Patrick. So I love that. And I love the communities that stand on those values. Like, this is who we are, this is what we're about, and we make decisions based off that. Now, I have to ask, and I do recognize I'm speaking to somebody that's been doing this for 7 years in a profession that typically, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, can have around 3 to 5 year shelf life. So it seems, or outside looking in, that you must have a great relationship with your with your board, your commission, your mayor. How has that been? How have you navigated that process so well with 7 years under your belt?
Yeah, I think, well, I was lucky to come into a situation with 5 board members who all sought to achieve the same goal. So they were on the same page. So that was a great starting point. And then, I think they gave me the freedom to do a couple of things. One, hire a staff that I thought would help them achieve their goals, and also not be afraid to make mistakes. So we'll try some stuff that doesn't work, you know? And if it doesn't work, we admit it doesn't work and we go back to the drawing board and we try something else. And I think that's a great freedom to have as a city manager and subsequently a city staff, that, we have a board that is so committed to achieving their goals that they allow us a certain amount of freedom in order to satisfy those goals. And it works. And, in addition to that, I still have 3 board members currently serving who were also serving when I was hired. Right. So that continuity helps. And then the 2 new board members have goals. Their goals are aligned with the previous 3. So even the new blood, if you will, is still speaking from the same, or singing from the same songbook. So as long as they're singing from the same songbook and I'm able to continue to execute the plans and achieve those goals, I mean, we're going to have a very nice relationship. And I'm grateful for that. But to everybody out there listening, those relationships take work. It's like a marriage, right? You have to choose every single day that you want the relationship to work so that you can perform to the best of your ability and everybody's wishes. So um, I think that's what separates us, is both sides are choosing every single day to stay committed to the goals. And as long as we do that, we know we're going to be successful.
I think I love the metaphor to a marriage. That makes so much sense on the how you want to work with your board. And then for our listeners, and you kind of alluded to this a very thoughtful way, but how do you define the role of a city manager? And I always say, treat me like a child. Just
Yeah.
how would you explain what do you do or what your role is?
I think in the easiest terms, I always like to kind of harken back to the CEO of a company. So the easiest way to think about it is, especially if you've watched movies where you've got this relationship, right? Your CEO reports to a board of directors and the board of directors gives general direction and the CEO goes and executes. I mean, that's the baseline relationship. However, there is a humongous significant difference between this and that is the people who live here, right? So we, in addition to running the company, right, we also have to be incredibly mindful of the wants, needs, desires, bugaboos, complaints of the people we serve. So it's almost like holistic management, like, yeah. Yeah, I just kind of that just kind of popped into my head, but it's almost like the holistic version of the CEO board relationship because of that additional factor. Now, interestingly enough, when I was in school, you know, and we're learning about the city management form of government and its origins and ICMA and all of that, and the position is meant to be an apolitical administrative position. And in a perfect world, I guess that can happen, but kids, that does not happen. Politics are always at the forefront. I think in order to be a successful manager, you really have to understand people, how they think, what motivates them, what, you know, cranks up their ire, and be able to adjust um, to meet the needs of various types of individuals, right? It's not one size fits all. You have to adapt. You have to understand people. You have to figure out how to, because the way I talk to one board member may be completely different than the way I talk to another board member. So it really is all about establishing, building, and nurturing relationships through communication, through body language. And I think that's what makes this position incredibly unique. I love the fact that, when I'm out in the wild, so to speak, and people are like, "What do you do for a living?" And I'm like, "A city manager." And they're like, "What the heck is that?" I get to talk about it, because, you know, there are so many positions that people hold in companies in the private sector that they just tell you what it is. And you're like, I get it. But there's so many people who have no clue that this position even exists, right? And so it's fun to be able to talk to them about it. But, I also like the fact that it's the position's nebulous. It is what you make of it. It's not cookie cutter. There are plenty of city managers who do things completely different than I do. And that's great because there are going to be situations where I call upon those people and I'm like, okay, this is what I would do in this situation, but it doesn't work. So tell me how you do it. And it's also a profession where people are, it's not like you have a secret recipe that you're locking away in a vault. Everybody's willing to help each other because we've all been through it. And I think that's really cool. It's like it's a brotherhood, sisterhood, fraternity, however you want to shake it. But I really appreciate that I have colleagues who have completely different approaches to the work that I do, but I can still rely on them to give me advice and steal from their playbook and implement stuff that I would never do, without, the advice of others.
I love that holistic management. That really broke it down to the nuance of the role. It's that traditional CEO, but you're living in the community in which you're supposed to be a steward of, and you can try things, but where an Apple can bet the house on an iPod or the iPhone, you can't really bet the house on anything. You can't bet
Yeah.
the fire department or the public works on anything. So I really can appreciate the nuance to that holistic management, and also what you stated about it being a political position in the perfect aspects of it. But I definitely hear, speaking to city managers, if you can at the very least understand where your board is coming from their political leanings, and what their goals are, and it sounds like you obviously have, it makes the conversations a lot easier when you know what they're looking for, when you know what they're trying to get across. So apolitical, yes, in a perfect world, but understanding the political nature of the beast is probably very, just, I'd say, additive to the job.
Yeah. And that's fantastic because I'll harken back to what we said earlier in the podcast. Politics has always juiced me.
Yeah,
So I
that's true.
like it. And so that lends itself well to the job. If I didn't like the politics, this wouldn't be for me.
The juice comes through. I definitely hear your passion. Could you share maybe just one initiative over the past 7 years, or even recently, that you're just very proud of?
Yeah. I think the redevelopment of our downtown has been my primary focus, really, because it's been, the goal of economic diversity has been at the forefront of the board's effort the entire time I've been here. But the reason being is and we talked about this when we met, but Avondale Estates was founded 1928 as a city. That was the incorporation date. So if you think a little bit more about that year, you'll know that the following year, the stock market crashed and the economy tanked and the country went into Great Depression for a decade. So the result of that is this planned city was only half built. The area of residential property now known as our historic district was completed, but the commercial district was just getting started. So unfortunately, after a couple of buildings that were erected in 1928 were completed, the remainder of the downtown was left undeveloped and then slowly developed in a haphazard way over the next several decades. And unfortunately, kind of the development technique or the way things developed throughout those decades were without zoning codes. So we had uses that weren't complementary, infrastructure that didn't make sense. So that is kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, you got a lot of work to do to redevelop a downtown that makes sense. But on the other hand, for government junkies, you have a relatively blank canvas with which to work. So it's like my job has an element of real life Sim City, you know? And so, we've touched on it a little bit, but the fact that we're able to turn a highway into a main street, we're able to establish a connective grid system in our downtown that allows for, multiple modes of transportation, different types of businesses. The fact that, we can build a multi-acre gathering space in the heart of our downtown to activate it so that we can recruit developers to come in and build, apartment and townhome communities surrounding it is an incredibly satisfying thing to be able to do. So the redevelopment of our downtown and it continues. I mean, we are still in the infancy, probably about a quarter of the way done, has been just a wonderful experience for me and something that I will cherish, the remainder of my life. Because, it's super cool to think that, when I retire, right? I mean, I've still got several decades. I'm 44 years old now. But when I retire, I'll be able to come back to this community and say, man, now look at all the work we've done and look what's happened as a result. And that's something that I think I know I will take incredible pride in. And it's why I got into this business. I mean, because you can really affect positive change at the ground level and do so for, not only the folks that you're currently serving, but future generations as well.
This is off topic, but I wanted to share it. One early memory of mine, actually, and probably one of the reasons that I do what I do was something similar to that. We had a county executive, and my mother was in the government, so I had some familiarity. And they put a library in our community, and it had like the county executive's name on that. And for some reason, like I was like, that is just so cool.
Right.
Like they get to say, like, I am bringing learning to your community and education. Like, and I was young too, but I was always a little studious person. I was like, that
Yeah.
is like just so cool. It made me think of that. Cause it is important to leave that legacy. The library is still there in my community and I can always go back. So that legacy is so important. One thing that it kind of makes me think of is as you're bringing more things to the community, what strategies are you guys using? Are you using like incentives? I heard you guys are putting down infrastructure. Kind of what strategies are you using to bring in industry?
Yeah. A mix of all of it. Uh, and we're strategic about how we deploy those incentives. We have used tax abatements. We have certainly used infrastructure improvements. We have a tax allocation district where a increment of the tax revenue generated in that district has to be used within that district in some form or fashion for economic development purposes. So we've set ourselves up with that revenue stream. We have a downtown development authority that provides micro grants to existing businesses to refresh facades or to boost their marketing efforts. We host our own events in the downtown so that we can draw audiences not only from within the community, but from outside the community to come and patronize our business community. So we, use every possible incentive at our disposal to continually market ourselves to the development community, to the retail community, to residents of neighboring communities to come into Avondale and see that they too can find a home here because it's truly a special place that, again, maintains its identity. We aren't Anytown, USA, And I'm not knocking interstate towns by any stretch of the imagination. But, if you travel along the interstate and you get off of an exit, you traditionally see kind of similar things at each exit, right? Not here. We stay true to ourselves, and that dictates everything we do. and we're very proud of it. And I think you would like, we're going through a branding campaign right now, which is really unique window into the perspectives of the folks who live here and the folks who travel to here. And you hear the same refrain over and over and over again. It's the sense of community. It's the fact that people feel comfortable interacting with each other, that people have spaces to interact with each other, that people have, friendly watering holes to gather on at happy hour. We are cool thing. This is just an aside, but I got to plug it. We are the reigning USA Today small town beer scene champ and have been 4 out of the last 5 years. So we have a really cool brewery community that, is kind of the heartbeat of our social economy. And, it's that stuff that makes Avondale Estates unique and gives me an incredible sense of pride for being able to participate in that community and the growth of the community.
That's incredible. You sold me, Patrick. I got to come down and
Yeah.
check it out. Now, a lot of awards and a lot of new development, but I do have to ask, everything can't be all sunshines and rainbows all the time. Are there any challenges that you see or anything that if you could just snap your finger and change, it would be better for your day to day or better for the community?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's a couple of things. One, Atlanta's an old city. The metropolitan area is aging, especially the area within the perimeter, which is a known moniker in the Atlanta metro area. It's just the infrastructure is old and it's expensive to replace and repair old infrastructure. So if I could snap my fingers and have all new stormwater infrastructure, all new road infrastructure, I'd do so in a heartbeat. So that's a challenge, right? Is trying to figure out how you deploy the financial resources you have available to ensuring that infrastructure doesn't collapse. Because, your stormwater infrastructure collapses and that can directly affect people's homes, people's businesses. So, that's incredibly important. But also, I think, the challenge of the diversity of need within the community is also one that you have to navigate every day. Because like I was talking about earlier, how our median age is significantly higher than the national median age, right? So we have an aging population who has a completely different set of needs than a young family. So trying to balance the things that we do to satisfy the needs of each of those demographics is challenging, and made even more so with the advent of social media groups, right? So even when I started in government, in 2007, Facebook was in its infancy. There was no Instagram. There was no TikTok. There wasn't really a coalescence around a topic which generated discussion on social media, right? So you were able to work a little more freely, right? Now everything you do is criticized. And I'm not saying criticize negatively per se. Some stuff is really, positively viewed, but you get that instant feedback every single day. Every move you make is now up for public discussion. And that is an incredible challenge because you have to balance being proactive with being reactive. And you don't want to be too reactive, that you lose the mission. And you want to be proactive, but not so far afield that you're doing stuff that doesn't resonate with the community you serve. So that's a huge challenge that we deal with nowadays that didn't exist 20 years ago. And I can't even imagine what that's going to be like in the next 10 years, right? I mean, it blows my mind. But, you know, if you just aim to be where your feet are, you know, you don't think too much in the past, you don't think too far in the future, you exist in the present, and you just take things one day at a time. and do things a little bit better tomorrow than you did the day before, everything will work out.
Man, Patrick, I think that might be the message we end on, unless you have anything else, and I'll definitely give you the floor. But just being where you are, trying daily to do your best and do what you can, and that incremental work, not the broad quick strokes, because when something is built quickly, it can decline quickly, but when it's built slowly and methodically and incrementally, it can last a very long time, like the legacy you're building down in Avondale Estates. So any last things that you want to share with our viewers?
Just again, that I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity you provided me today to come talk about Avondale Estates. I love talking about our community. I love getting our message out to new audiences. You know, some would just say I like to talk. So this is a fun thing for me to do. And Jonathan, I'm just so appreciative that you thought this would be a fun conversation, and it was, and I've had a great time. And anytime you want me to come back, I'm all yours.
Appreciate that, Patrick. And we definitely want to have you back. I knew this. I called my shot. I said, this is going to be a good one. I knew it. And just the energy you bring and the passion you bring from your community, I truly appreciate it. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Patrick Bryant, the city manager of Avondale Estates in Georgia, not to be confused with that Roll Tide mug that he was drinking.
Always representing.
But ladies and gentlemen, this is the Gentry Podcast, and we'll see you next episode. Thank you.